Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today's episode is about boundaries, specifically what happens when you say no, explain why, and someone decides that answer isn't acceptable. One story starts at work where a personal safety boundary gets reframed as discrimination. Another centers on a baby, ignored warnings, and a bill that never should have existed. And one turns a simple parking spot into a full-blown neighborhood power struggle. Stick around until the end because we're going to compare all three and decide which response actually worked. And I want you to vote in the comments on which story handled it best. A lesson in boundaries. When you should visit my country becomes you're discriminatory for saying no. I'm a 36-year-old guy working in a fairly quiet office where people mostly keep their heads down, do their work, and gossip politely over coffee. Until recently, I would have said I had a genuinely good relationship with one of my coworkers. Let's call her Amina. She's in her early 30s, sharp, outgoing, and for years we'd been friendly in that comfortable, low-stakes way that makes a long work week tolerable. Amina is originally from Nigeria and goes back home about twice a year. Every time she returns, she's glowing. Seriously, like someone who's been plugged into a charger. She always comes back with photos, stories, and enough enthusiasm to power the office for a week. I never minded. I like seeing people happy, and it was nice watching someone genuinely enjoy time with family and culture instead of complaining about deadlines and Outlook calendars. Every trip followed the same rhythm. She'd show me pictures of food, beaches, family gatherings, and markets. She'd talk about how good it felt to disconnect from work. And then, without fail, she'd pivot and tell me I had to visit someday. She knows I'm a huge foodie, so she'd rattle off restaurants, street vendors, family recipes. I'd smile, nod, and say my usual line, maybe someday. That had been enough for years. This time was different. She came back from her most recent trip and swung by my desk like usual, phone already in hand. She scrolled through photos and handed me a handwritten list of places she insisted I'd love. Then she said it, not playfully, not casually, but with a sharp little edge. You can't keep putting it off like you have the last few years. You really need to go. Something about the tone rubbed me wrong. I wasn't in the mood to dance around it anymore, so I told her plainly I won't be going. She rolled her eyes and laughed in a way that wasn't friendly. American men always want to travel to Europe and South America, but never want to visit the motherland. That stopped me cold. For context, I'm an openly gay Caribbean man. Amina knows this. She's met my partner at work events, smiled at us both, made small talk, acted completely supportive. What she also knows, or should know, is that I spent a big chunk of my childhood and teenage years in a deeply homophobic environment. I didn't grow up with abstract fear. I grew up watching it happen to people around me. I've seen men beaten for being suspected of being gay. I've seen families quietly erase sons who went missing. I learned early how to keep my head down, my voice neutral, my body language careful. That kind of vigilance never really leaves you. So I asked her calmly, "You know being gay is still criminalized there, right?" She nodded like that was a minor detail. "Yes, but it's mostly sexual acts that are punished. If you avoid that, you'd be fine." I stared at her. "If I'm going on vacation, I'm going with my partner," I said. "I'm not spending thousands of dollars to pretend the person I love doesn't exist. I don't want to relax while also wondering if I could be arrested or worse just for being myself." She went quiet, just said, "Oh, okay," and turned back to her desk. I thought that was the end of it. The next morning, my supervisor, let's call him Greg, asked me to step into his office. That alone was strange. Greg usually avoids confrontation like it's contagious. He closed the door and told me he'd received a complaint alleging I'd made discriminatory comments regarding someone's nationality. He said he was writing me up and intended to escalate the complaint to HR. I was stunned. Amina couldn't refute your safety argument, so she reframed the narrative. Your deeply personal, trauma-informed boundary was twisted into a discriminatory act against her nationality. It wasn't just a complaint, it was a strategic attempt to make the victim look like the aggressor. I explained exactly what happened. I explained why I don't travel to countries where my existence is criminalized. I explained why this wasn't an attack on anyone's nationality, but a personal safety boundary shaped by lived experience. Greg listened, nodded, and said he understood where I was coming from. Then he told me he still wanted me to sign the write-up for documentation purposes. That's when I stopped being polite. I told him I wasn't signing anything. I told him I should never have to explain my sexual orientation to my supervisor to justify not wanting to vacation somewhere unsafe. I told him that if I was called into his office again over something this ridiculous, the only words he'd hear from me would be, "Please speak to my lawyer." The room went quiet. Greg cleared his throat, slid the paper back into his folder, and said he'd have a conversation with Amina instead. No write-up, no HR escalation. Suddenly, the whole thing didn't seem so urgent anymore. You didn't just refuse to sign, you reminded them that there are costs for this nonsense. The moment you introduced the word lawyer, the situation was no longer a simple administrative task for Greg. It became a liability, and his urgent paperwork suddenly became very optional. We'd worked side by side for years. We were the only two black people in the office. I thought there was mutual understanding there, not just culturally, but human to human. I thought she got it. Instead, the moment my boundaries conflicted with her pride, she decided to frame me as the problem. The salty part of this is she wanted me to risk my safety to validate her feelings, and when I refused, she tried to use the system to punish me for it. That's not friendship, that's entitlement with paperwork. I don't know what our relationship will look like going forward, but I do know this: my peace, my safety, and my dignity aren't negotiable. And I'm not signing away my spine just to keep an office vibe chill. But the silver lining is that you have a good reason to distance yourself from her. You don't have to defend anything you said. She stuck her nose where it did not belong, got her feathers ruffled, and chose to lash out. Do you really need this person in your life? And our second story. The 2,300-pound baby grab. How ignoring a simple safety tip led to a friendship-ending invoice. I'm a 28-year-old woman married to a 32-year-old man, and at the center of this mess is our 6-month-old son. He's chubby, curious, loud, and currently in the stage of life where his hands are essentially tiny grappling hooks. If it dangles, shines, or looks remotely interesting, he's going to grab it. Glasses, phones, hair, earrings, nothing is safe. Anyone who's spent more than 5 minutes around a baby knows this. Because we're not idiots, we warn people before they hold him. Every time, hey, just a heads up, he grabs things. We don't say it once, we say it clearly, sometimes twice, sometimes with a smile, sometimes with a tired laugh. We're not trying to be dramatic, we're trying to avoid exactly what happened. A few weeks ago, a friend of mine came over to visit. Let's call her Lauren. She's 33, child-free, very into designer everything, and deeply convinced that warnings don't apply to her. She showed up looking like she'd stepped out of an influencer ad, oversized sunglasses perched on her head, phone already in hand, outfit probably worth more than my car payment. She immediately asked if she could hold the baby. I said, sure, no problem. I like when people are excited about him, and she's held him before while sitting down. Before handing him over, I casually said, just so you know, you might want to take the sunglasses off your head. He grabs things, especially shiny stuff. She rolled her eyes, not subtly, full eye roll. Then she laughed out loud and said, "You're such a mom now. You're hugging your own baby." That annoyed me, but I let it go. I repeated myself, still polite, "I'm serious, he will grab them." She waved me off. "It's fine." "Fine, your choice." She stood there holding him, still wearing the sunglasses, and immediately pulled out her phone to take a selfie. I didn't object, only reminded her not to post it online. I'm not sharing his face publicly yet, and she agreed, distracted, already angling the camera. Right on schedule, my son reached up, latched onto the sunglasses with both hands, and lit up like he'd just discovered fire. He flailed excitedly, which sent the sunglasses flying. They hit the floor hard. Lauren screamed, a sharp, panicked shriek that startled the baby. He panicked in return, jerked his arms, and knocked her phone out of her hand. The phone followed the sunglasses to the floor with a very unpleasant sound. I immediately took my son from her arms and focused on calming him down. He was red-faced, shaking, and on the verge of crying. Meanwhile, Lauren was spiraling. "Oh my God," she shouted. "Do you have any idea how much those cost?" I didn't answer right away because, again, I was holding a frightened baby. My husband came over, checked that our son was okay, then glanced at the floor. The sunglasses were clearly damaged. The phone screen was cracked. Lauren turned on me like I'd personally shoved her off a cliff. "You need to replace those," she said, "both of them." I told her calmly, "I warned you, twice." She ignored that and kept going. "These are Gucci, 800 pounds, and my phone is ruined. You need to buy me a new one." She pulled up the price on her screen, because of course she did, and announced the total, 2,300 pounds. She said it like she was ordering a coffee. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. I told her there was absolutely no way we could afford that. I'm on maternity pay. That amount is more than I make in a month. I also told her again that I warned her multiple times and she chose not to listen. She treated your warning like a line from a movie trailer. Dramatic, but not real. When reality played out exactly as predicted, she tried to send the bill to you. This wasn't about your baby. It was about her refusal to accept that rules apply to her too. That's when she called me heartless. She said I lacked empathy, that I should be more understanding because she was in shock, that any decent friend would offer to replace expensive items broken by their child. I told her that decent friends also listen when they're warned. I told her my priority was my baby, not her accessories. My husband backed me up immediately. He shrugged and said, "You were warned. That's on you." She didn't like that. She accused us of being irresponsible parents, said we should control our child better, said she never let something like that happen if it were her baby. I didn't even respond to that part because I didn't have the energy to explain basic infant development to a grown adult who thought a 6-month-old could follow instructions. She left shortly after, slamming the door and muttering about how disappointed she was in me. Here's the part that still makes my eye twitch. She later messaged mutual friends, framing the story as if my baby had violently grabbed her belongings and we coldly refused to help. Thankfully, the people who know me also know I don't withhold warnings or accountability. Once they heard the full story, including the multiple warnings she ignored, opinions shifted quickly. I don't feel bad, I feel annoyed. If you bring luxury items into a home with a baby, ignore explicit warnings, and then hand that baby expensive objects, that's a risk you willingly take. My child didn't break anything maliciously. He acted exactly like a 6-month-old does. The only person who behaved irresponsibly was the adult who assumed a warning didn't apply to her. She hasn't been invited back. When she couldn't win the argument, she rewrote the whole story for your friends. It turned your son's normal baby behavior into a violent act and your reasonable boundary into cruelty. It's a classic move. If you can't win with facts, try to win with fiction. And if she ever asks again to hold my son while wearing 800-pound sunglasses and a phone worth more than my rent, the answer will be no. Not because I'm hogging my baby, but because I'm done babysitting grown adults who refuse to listen and then demand compensation when reality taps them on the shoulder. You warned her more than once. She chose not to listen because she thought she knew better. Babies grab things. That's not a parenting failure. That's reality. Bringing expensive stuff around a baby and ignoring warnings is a risk she took. You're not responsible for her bad judgment. And our last story. My neighbor stole my assigned parking spot for weeks, then parked sideways to block me in. I had her towed. I'm 30 and live in a small apartment complex, maybe 20 units total. Every apartment has its own assigned parking spot that comes with the rent. Nothing fancy. I've lived here for 3 years and have always parked in the same spot right outside my building. Easy. About 2 months ago, this woman, I barely know her, I just see her sometimes in the hallway, starts parking in my spot. I'd guess she's late 40s, maybe 50s. We're calling her Karen because, yeah. The first time it happened, I figured maybe she was just dropping something off or forgot which spot was hers. Whatever, I didn't say anything, but then it kept happening. Every day I'd come home and boom, there she is, fully settled into my spot like it belonged to her. So now I'm parking across the lot or squeezing into visitor spots that aren't even close. It's super annoying, especially when it's dark, raining, I have groceries, or I just want to go home without doing laps around the building. After about a week, I left a small note. Nothing mean. Literally, "Hey, this is my spot. Please don't park here. Thanks." Smiley face and everything. I was being nice. Next day, she's at my door, angry, fully annoyed face energy. She says she has permission from the landlord to park there because she doesn't have her own spot. I'm like, what? That's news to me. I tell her, okay, but could she show me something in writing because the spot is in my lease, I pay for it. She immediately gets loud, saying she's been parking there for weeks and it's not that serious and that I'm being rude for asking. I wasn't yelling, I literally just wanted to park where I'm supposed to. Then she says, "Why don't you just share it?" I swear my brain shut down. Share it? This isn't snacks, this is a parking spot tied to my apartment. I tell her again, if she really has permission, cool, just show me. If not, please stop parking there. She gets mad again, says I'm being hostile, and threatens to tell the landlord I'm causing problems for the building. So the next day, I go straight to the landlord. Turns out she has zero permission. None. Landlord straight up tells me, "No, that spot's assigned to you. We don't reassign parking without paperwork." I ask them to tell her to stop. I think it's over. LMAO, no. She didn't just take your spot, she tried to take authority too. Making up permission wasn't just lying, it was her trying to rewrite reality. The moment you checked with the landlord, you didn't just prove her wrong, you exposed the fantasy she operates in. After that, she goes full passive-aggressive. She starts parking right next to me, so close I literally had to crawl in through the passenger side once, leave notes on my windshield like selfish people make bad neighbors. Girl, are we 12? Then I find out she's been telling neighbors that I'm harassing her over a one-time mistake. One time? She's been parking there for weeks. I left one note and asked one question. And then last week I come home and she's parked sideways in the visitor spot behind my car, blocking me in completely. I knock on her door, she refuses to open it and just yells, "Deal with it," through the door. Okay, boss battle unlocked, I guess. I had to call the landlord again and they had her car towed. I felt like a kid tattling, but what else was I supposed to do? In her mind, she's the hero, bravely standing up to a selfish neighbor. Every note, every block-in, every lie was her trying to force you into the villain role. The tow truck wasn't karma, it was the director cutting her scene. Now the whole building feels weird. She won't talk to me, just death stares. Neighbors keep asking, "What's the drama?" And I'm just trying to go to work and park my damn car. I was polite. I didn't yell. I didn't curse her out. I let the landlord handle it. I acted like a normal adult. And she turned this into a full-blown neighborhood saga over my parking spot, the one I pay for. I just wanted peace. Instead, I'm living in a sitcom with this woman. Unbelievable. When you put these three stories side by side, the contrast is sharp. The first shows a boundary defended verbally, then legally. The second shows warnings ignored and accountability rejected until reality forced it. The third shows entitlement unraveling once rules were enforced consistently. Same core issue in all three. Someone deciding another person's limits didn't matter. Three different responses, three different outcomes. The question isn't who was angriest, it's which approach actually stopped the behavior. Now it's your turn. Which story handled it best? Story 1, refusing to negotiate safety. Story 2, letting consequences speak for themselves. Story 3, enforcing rules without emotion. Vote 1, 2, or 3 in the comments and tell us why. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss a new video every single day. Thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.